How about it? Brilliancy. And look at the follow-up here. It's the follow-up that gets me every single time. It takes literally one of the best players in the world to ever do a move like this.
This is a chess game so beautiful that only the world number one Casserole Marsnip could have played it. It was in the World Rapid Championship 2024. His opponent was Denis Kadrich, another grandmother elite player, and Magnus just eviscerates him. Positional, tactical beauty, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long time. So he opens with the pawn to e4. Now we see some copying done, and after this knight f6, Magnus almost falls asleep, just catches himself. This is a boring Russian or Petrov variation, very drawish reputation. Magnus now gobbles like a hearty bowl of soup with
mushrooms.
And after d6 kicking this one, retreating, this pawn's now chowed down on and the knight develops. You normally see takes, different game, different structure, but Denis copies Magnus's homework. Now we see him take the center, and you could copy again, fight for the center, take control of this square, but then you give this square, just a different game. So instead we see this one. Magnus also develops his sniper, and this king tucks into its man cave. Magnus goes like this, and he's taken away light squares from this bishop. It lets out a little sob. We now see rook e8 preparing to eviscerate, so the king tucks into bed. Knight b to d7, rook e1 played, and someone is about to get rook rolled down that file. Now we see h6, not only taking control of g4, g5 over here, but i4, i5, often overlooked. Now a4, and it gets better, because not only have they taken control of b4 and b5, but also z4 and z5. You know, in case you were wondering, it's how as well we pronounce the guy of whose music we love in the UK, JZ, in case you were wondering. We now see bishop f4, bishop f8, offers that exchange, and Magnus rook rolls his opponent, humming away, never going to give you up as he does it. This queen develops, the rook's going to join the party, the other one. This takes control of some knight jumps, and now don't Botez gambit, bishop g3, and you could definitely go d5 here, once again possible, but queen b6 prepares to eat a pawn. Is Magnus going to defend it? Well, we're going to find out here. What would you play with the white pieces? I mean, this is where he just takes it up a level, right, to world champion, number one caliber. He plays the awesome knight h4, normally a boo-boo, sticking it on the edge, but it's headed to here where it attacks the king. He's offering two pawns. If you take this one, not good, you get fossilized with check, queen drops, and if you take this one, you've got the switchback rook b1. This didn't happen. We're in analysis mode. The board's grayed out. Queen's got only one square, and then this would actually trap the rook if there wasn't a check. So you can go queen e1, prepare rook b3, and the queen's just in jail. You know, it can't actually get out. And if you try d5 to give some space, knight f5 takes these squares. I'm not going to keep going and going on the line, but the queen's actually lost and trapped. It's in jail. You can't escape it. Wow, what a line. So the pawn not touched here. Instead, queen b4, d5 again, very playable, especially now the knight left f3. This one sets up a pin, you know, keeps an eye on this knight e4 stuff, but now Magnus hops that one there. Garry Kasparov used to say that a knight on f5 was worth a pawn. It's such a powerful attacking piece, and after knight b6, headed for some central squares, opening the bishop, we now see check played by Magnus here. You could actually take immediately and go bishop d7, but instead the king steps away, trying to maintain this bishop pair for now, and after queen f4 from Magnus activating, looking at a sensitive point here, again we have to ask ourselves, what if you now take the pawn? Because this time you're hitting a knight, you know, the queen's no longer defending it. We'll look at the rise here from Eval Barovic. The problem now, and this is really awesome, knight e4. Now you're leaving a knight hanging. You know, what if takes that one? Well, then there's takes, and you can't play the natural bishop takes, or you get bamboozled. That's checkmate. What if you took like this? Bam, that's checkmate. Horrible, horrible stuff. So you can't take after this one here. You know what to do. You'd have to tuck back. Now there's rook e8. You're woefully underdeveloped and everything like that. We'll pause it here, right? White is killing it. So it's why the pawn wasn't touched. This is very powerful. You could take as well, but there's more amazing lines. The queen marches in. We're not going to go on every line. White's killing it. So we see bishop e6, just trying to hold everything together, developing the rook. Now you prepare to win the knight, no longer defended. So this is where Magnus now plays the first awesome move. He goes knight g6 check, because if takes, not played, then you crash through here, and you're also on this pawn, and you've got an active rook, and this knight looks a bit silly. The rook's out of the game. Again, it's problems on the light squares here as well. So we didn't see this. We saw instead king g8. Now this bishop drops, rook recaptures, and Magnus wins a clean central pawn. It never did advance. It now prepares to win the queen or do some exchange stuff. So now finally black takes on b2, about to hit the knight, and this is where the brilliancy is unleashed on the board. And it's not just the brilliancy, but the follow-up, because how many of us here are playing, say, knight e4? Nothing wrong with it, but it's just throwing away advantage. This is just a level position, right? Nothing special for white anymore. So we come back, this isn't the play. What did Magnus find here? He picks up the rook and he sacrifices it on e6. I mean, this is awesome. We get pawn recaptures, and it's all about the epic Swiss cheese on those light squares. The finish is on the way, and by the way, do consider subscribing to Epic Cheese. Rumour has it we might hit 100,000 subs by midsummer 2026 with your help. Much appreciated. We now see the follow-up move, the cool and calm, not a check, knight e4.
It takes literally one of the best players in the world to ever do a move like this. Like, how do you sack the rook and follow up with a move like that so calm?
I mean, how cool is that? You're just removing this last or second from last defender of the king, and look at these ones. The queen, the knight, they're in Siberia. So we don't see captures. If that happened, then there's check and you take here and you're getting killed on the light squares. The bishop joins in. I'll pause it there and not keep going. So we see this one played, trying to do some defense, re-enter the game, but now takes with check. The king side steps to the corner, and how about this follow-up? Knight d6, an octopus that Stocktopus can be proud of. You're threatening to check here. Queen d4, the most stalwart defense, but still white's doing great. Instead, knight b4 played, goes for that nasty bishop, which is absolutely killing you down here. But now we see this creeping move, queen e7. It's almost as painful as building flat pack furniture. Black's really struggling here. If king g8 to defend the rook, then bishop f5's a killer. Headed for e6 to kill the king, win the rook. You don't do it here straight away, by the way, or a knight can intercept. So this would have been the line, but that wasn't played. Instead, the rook sidelines itself, and look at the time. Magnus has got 8 minutes to 13 seconds. He takes the pawn off, the rook comes back. Now we see queen e7, and it's a bit of sadistic tickle. Same position, but Magnus has won a pawn. So the knight now checks here. The light squares killing black. King g8 played, and now another brilliant move. How does Magnus finish off the black player here? He goes bang, takes on h6, removes this defender of the knight. You could have sidestepped with the king, but you're still then getting killed. This is how the game proceeded. The bishop finally drops, but now Magnus picks up a pawn with a whole series of checks and eventually takes off the knight, and here we see resignation. Why? Well, if you do, what would be the move for black that I was looking at? Was I looking at a check maybe? No, not sure. Let's say, sorry, queen b7. This is what I was looking at to cover the checkmating here. And then you can spin around, cover these mate threats. Well, now, anyway, this pawn drops. These ones are running. The king is still hopelessly exposed, something like this, check, and the pawn's running, or you're getting mated. We'll stop it there, right? White's king safe as houses. Exceptional game from Magnus Carlsen. And if you want to see another outlandish, great game from this same tournament, then have a look at the video on screen. Cheers.